You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Our guest today is Curt Burnett. Curt recently served for 3 years as the Technology Innovation Director for the Quad Cities Manufacturing Innovation Hub. Prior to this role, Curt had 37 years with Deere & Company in advanced manufacturing and operations leadership. The Quad Cities Manufacturing Innovation Hub was established as a network of resources and people focused on building the Quad Cities capacity and its reputation as a leader in manufacturing. The hub is an economic development strategy to ensure the region remains competitive, particularly with new technology shaping the industry. Two of the key programs that Curt led were, first, a regional collaboration to develop a technology roadmap for the region, and second, a supply chain diversification strategy for small and medium-sized manufacturers. Today, we'll be talking with Curt about advanced manufacturing, its adoption, and its impact on manufacturers. Let's begin our interview. Curt, welcome to Leading the Factory Forward podcast. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on digital manufacturing and how that's going to change in the future. So what would you say is a general definition of digital manufacturing, or some people have called it manufacturing 4.0?
Well, first of all, Lynn, thanks for taking the time to talk to me. And this is a fun subject for me. And we've been working on this diligently here for the last couple of years at the Quad Cities Manufacturing Innovation Hub. So the definition that we like to use, and there's lots of definitions out there, but this one's pretty simple. It's customers and suppliers using computer-based integrated 3D systems to exchange design and order information to quote, process, plan, manufacture, inspect, and deliver products to the end customer. That's our definition, and quite often it's a little bit easier to talk about what it isn't, right? Because that gives you actually more context to what it is. And so if you find yourself re-entering part geometry or using drawings, re-entering order data, if you're using a lot of spreadsheets in your business, these are signs that you got a ways to go on the integrated part of that definition. And so an integrated, we think, is really the most important part because that's where the money's at. Integrating actually reduces your engineering time, increases customer responsiveness, and quite often leads to better quality. The other thing is you mentioned manufacturing 4.0, and that's kind of interesting because I think that definition was largely launched and popular in Europe. So this whole area of digital manufacturing is called a lot of things. You've probably heard smart manufacturing or MBE, model-based enterprise. But they're really all kind of describing this thing that we call digital manufacturing.
Oh, great. With that set up for us, what are the things you see then changing for manufacturers the next 2 to 3 years?
We always talk about what isn't changing. In the Quad Cities, we talk about this tsunami of technology that's going to hit the shop floor, and it's really arriving in a lot of different areas. Starting with, and this one's often overlooked, that what we make is changing. I'll just give you a couple examples. Electric drives and autonomous vehicles, for example. We have tremendous investment in the paradigm of the physical transmission power. So we have engines and transmissions and drive shafts and gearboxes, and we have lots of capital invested in the machines and the factories to make those things. And you're going to see less and less of those going forward. Electrification is really going to be the major way that power gets transmitted. Autonomous vehicles as well. Designing and building a product without an operator station or a cab, that's a different challenge and actually a new opportunity. What we're making is changing. More sensors and controls, both in the products and the shop floor, and those are all going to be connected to the internet. Materials, lightweight materials, composites, obviously the most current example of how that is changing in industries. Manufacturing processes. lasers, additive manufacturing, robots. So lots and lots of changes, and these are all on us right now. Next 2 to 3 years, major impact to the shop floor.
So, Curt, those are some dramatic enough changes, even in the close future here. Then as you look 5 to 7 years out, I mean, are there things that are really going to be even bigger changes for manufacturers?
I can't even think out 5 years. This is headed so quick. But if you think out 3 to 5 years, we just talked about the next 2 to 3 years. If you look 3 to 5 years, I think something that we've been talking about for 30 years is actually finally going to happen, and that's the integrated and optimized supply chain. It won't be complete, but we'll be into that change significantly, I think, 5 years from now. What that means is when there's a change in design or a build schedule, that change happens at the customer. It'll cascade from manufacturer to manufacturer, from computer to computer with little manual intervention. At the Quad Cities Manufacturing Innovation Hub, we like to talk about being digital ready. And that's the ability to take and leverage digital design or the order data, take it from your customer and use it to improve your safety, quality, cost, or responsiveness. So that's really what folks are going to have to become over the next 5 years is digital ready. And also, if you think out 5 years, this Internet of Things is going to be really on us by then. They talk about if you go out 5 years, there's going to be 50 billion devices on the net. And so if you start to think about what that means in manufacturing, it's going to enable data analytics, going to enable remote monitoring and process control of the factory. A host of other activities are going to help us do real-time optimization of operations. Once we get digital on the shop floor, start to get it all connected, and then the issue is what do you do with it? And I think you're going to see lots of optimization and using data analytics to really hone our operations.
Yeah, we can already see pieces that, I mean, even the fact that many of us are wearing health and fitness trackers, all of a sudden we're all already beginning to collect data, and it'll be just fascinating as to how that advances as those technologies really get into the shop floor.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think, Lynn, you've actually used this with me before that got my attention. If you look in the personal space, that's always a leader. And just look at the way that things are getting connected in your house, from your thermostat to, smart refrigerators and in your car even. This whole Internet of Things and the integration is going to enable a lot of really interesting changes.
Certainly will. Taking a step back again then, as we've talked about some of the things that can change, what, in your estimation, are some of the key elements or key pillars in digital manufacturing? While a small company may not be able to do everything at once, what are some of the different pieces they may look on, but depending on their needs?
The first one, Lynn, I think really isn't a manufacturing. It's more on the marketing side. But if you're not real digital ready, one of the things that you can start with is your web presence. Are you visible on the internet in a meaningful way? Is your presence on the web helping to drive sales? Are you leveraging local media to try to get the talents and skills and the personality of your company out there in a way that people can see it? So that's really not per se on the manufacturing side of things. In the manufacturing world, we like to think about 6 key elements. One is inclusive and iterative design and quotation process. Inclusive means that you are working hand in hand with your customer to help to optimize and reduce cost out of the design, make the design more manufacturable. So that's one area. Second area is integrated manufacturing. So do you have a data-driven and managed shop floor? And those are really kind of the entry points, right? Those are the first 2 things you should be looking at and trying to develop as a manufacturer. And once you get there, then it actually brings up a concern, right? Cybersecurity. Today, I think almost everybody has had a bad experience with their home PC, right? And having the security breached or something bad happen to it. Obviously, you can imagine once you get an integrated supply chain and the Internet of Things gets going, the kinds of things that could happen to your factories. So cybersecurity becomes an issue. Fourth thing, then, is hiring and developing the digital workforce. all this needs to be supported, and there's a couple ways you can do that. You can train and update the skills of the workforce you have, and as you go forward, hiring people that fit that world. 5 and 6 are really kind of advanced, but the Internet of Things that we talked about a minute ago, and just as you buy equipment, you should always be thinking about connectivity and the different things that you can do to help create more efficiency in your business by integrating the equipment and the software that you do have. And data analytics is going to be a tool that even the small manufacturers are going to be able to utilize in 4 or 5 years from now. Those are the 6 that we like to talk about at the Hub.
I especially was interested in your, do you have a web presence? Because as I've talked to some small manufacturers, their concern is that they used to go out and drive around and drop in on customers. But as I talk to people, if the millennials are now the purchasing agent, well, they're going on the web first, and that's how they vet the people they're going to talk to. What's their web presence? Tell us those kinds of things. So it is a switch in mindset, I think, as much as anything, that you need to be present there first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And, relationships, there's always going to be relationships in the business. Some of that relationship's going to transfer from taking somebody out to lunch to exchanging some media or being connected on social media.
Yep, absolutely. Any thoughts you have on, I've got a little bit of technical knowledge, got a little bit of technology, but how would I make the first few steps I need?
The first thing I recommend is to make it real. Okay, and so one thing about technology is if you start focusing on the technology, you can get lost. So start the focus on your business. Get your staff or a handful of key employees from the shop and the office to work on, well, first of all, look for and then work on pain points. And a good way to do this is follow the process from the point a customer request for quotation comes in, through your process planning, and then physically, how do you make it on the shop floor and how do you deliver it? And ask yourself, where do we struggle? What if we could improve performance? What would most impact our customers? If you look at it from both those angles, one is where you're struggling and where you could provide more value to the customer, those will pop up. And then what you do is say, all right, how can, and a lot of this is, of course, just being lean and improving your internal processes. But in this day and age, if you're going to improve a process, there's almost always a way to enable that improvement with technology. And I think that's a good way to get started, to leverage technology to improve some of your pain points. The second area, Lynn, that I would suggest a little more strategic, folks can do the basic SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and do that with a focus on technology. What you should do is then look for disruptors. The example everybody's using now is additive manufacturing. How will that impact, or how could it disrupt your business 3 years from now? So kind of a tactical and then a strategic look, but both those are ways to make it real for you and your staff and your employees.
It sounds like, especially for places like the manufacturing hub, another opportunity is for them to get together with their peer networks, learn from each other as they make these early steps.
Yeah, that's the second phase of this whole thing, right? Is once you've identified those, then there's a lot of activity that has to occur for you to figure out how you're going to address the opportunity or make the improvement. And going to your peers is a great resource. Take some time, but it's free normally.
Right, absolutely. What are some of the places where they might go searching for additional information or examples that they might be able to inform them with?
Whether you're looking for pain points or if you're doing a SWOT analysis, the next step is, okay, where do I get help, right? And so the technology is moving so fast that typically, and I don't care how big or small company you are, you typically don't know what you don't know. So you got to look for some people that are experts or at least have more information or knowledge than you do. Meetups are really big now. They're moving into the manufacturing space. They started and typically have moved from social group to industry, but now they're big everywhere. And so in the Quad Cities, we've recently started 8 technology user groups that are using the meetup format where manufacturers can come and learn from each other. And these are technology-based things like automation, robotics, and CAD/CAM, and data analytics, and augmented and virtual reality, just to name a few. So that's a good way. Second thing is there's lots of agencies and services out there to help you. The manufacturing extension partnerships, and I know, Lynn, you've worked with IMEC in Illinois and Cirrus in Iowa and had some good results with them. We've got the Digital Manufacturing Design and Innovation Institute in Chicago. Their whole mission in life is to figure out how to drive and accelerate digital manufacturing. Your community college is a good place to look. And then also don't forget suppliers. So you got PTC, Parametric Technologies, SAP, they have conferences and classes. And then specifically in the shop floor, Siemens and Rockwell, there's always some kind of local value-added distributor. In the Quad Cities, we've got Van Meter or Graybar. So academia, your manufacturing extension partnership in your state, DMDII, peer-to-peer, and then suppliers. Those are all really good places to look for more help.
Thanks, Curt. Those are excellent ideas. Just another example, I was this morning talking to a company that supplies lubricants and coolants to companies. Well, they've adopted some great technologies to help provide for predictive maintenance. And so, again, they'd be a great source for a small company to get started on, okay, how do I get more data about what's going on with my equipment or my products?
And I've seen lots of different examples where, and especially it kind of goes with the people that are making progress. They've stepped back and figured out, hey, where can technology really help me? And I visited a company, a similar example the other day, where they did a great job of arming their sales force with a tool that can provide on-site sketches and quotations almost instantaneously of the part configuration that they want. And they know that gives them an upper hand in the sales process.
Oh, absolutely. In any of these things, we always have to, especially as a small company, we have to figure out, okay, what's the fastest path to the cash? And
yeah, absolutely.
Quoting processes or the fact that you've prevented a significant piece of machine downtime, it's pretty easy to draw the line right to the bottom line, and that's important.
Absolutely. I mean, that's always the place to start the conversation, is what is the business benefit that I'm trying to drive? And if you start with that, and then just commit, because there's a lot of education and awareness that has to occur. It's all out there, though. I mean, it's amazing what you can find out on the internet or what's available in a conference or webinar.
Well, Curt, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share about this big picture view of digital manufacturing. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience?
Start where it makes sense. Invest some time. Look at your calendar and say, I'm going to invest X amount of hours per week focused on the future. There's going to be some disruptive things that are going to occur, and there's going to be winners and losers. The winners are the folks that are anticipating and turning a disruptor into a competitive advantage.
Thank you, Curt, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and expertise on this subject. And again, we'll look forward to future opportunities to maybe dive into some of these technologies in a little more detail. So again, thanks, and we appreciate your insights.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.